Hi, this video is part of my complete Helm course. The link is in the description of this video, so make sure to give a thumbs up, and if you don't want to miss any updates, subscribe to the channel. That being said, let's get started. Another thing I want to mention here is regarding this little dot here. As we go along the course, especially when we go and dive a little bit deeper into the Go templating features, you will see that the meaning of this dot changes. So the dot here refers to the current context. Now this current context here, if we do not have any if or range or loops surrounding it, it simply means the top level object that is coming from the Helm templating feature. That will contain three top level keys: the values key, the release key, and the chart key. And each of them will have their own set of keys. As you already know, the dot values here will contain all the values that are defined in the values.yaml file or are also coming from the user. The dot release will contain information about the release. If we hover over here, you will see that there are a few attributes that are part of this object here, and that we can use to get information and to also customize the behavior of our Helm charts. And last but not least, the chart object here, it also contains several attributes that we can use to fetch chart information. If we go back to the terminal here and we have a look at the results of our Helm template, you will see that the release name here, it's just a mock value, but the chart value here, the chart.name, is really coming from our chart.yaml file. So the dot here and what it represents, the context it represents, it's something that is very important. That's why we will come back to this later on as we explore conditionals, ranges, loops, and other functions, other features of Go templating that allow us to change the meaning of this dot here. But that is a topic for a little bit later down the road. Another very important feature of Go templating are functions. Functions here in the Go templating language, they assume the following form. So let me just add a new comment here and then we'll simply list it down here. So the general form is that we have the function name. So function name, and then we're going to have the series of arguments, right? So no parentheses here, nothing. We're just going to have the argument 1. Then we're going to have argument 2. Then we're going to have as many arguments as necessary for the function to work. So let's take a very simple example here, and we would like to take the values.test value here and we would like to make it lowercase. So we're going to use lower, and as you can see here, this already gets highlighted and we don't need to add parentheses or anything. And if we now come back to our terminal, let's clear the screen, let's rerun the Helm template, you will see that this is printed in lowercase. So this is one example of a function that takes a single argument. Let's now have a look at a function that takes 3 parameters, and that's going to be the replace function. Now you see the replace function here, if we hover over here, it's going to show us a small documentation, and you will see the first string is the one that we want to look for. The second here is the one that we want to replace whatever we found here, and the third one is the source string. So let's then define here, let's have a look, and let's say that we actually want to replace white spaces by dashes. And then the string that we will use is the values.test here. So let's now save this, come back to the terminal, let's rerun Helm template, and you will see here that string now has dashes instead of white spaces separating the words. Another very common operator that you will find is the pipe operator. And what the pipe operator does is it takes the result of the expression on the left and it passes as the last argument to the function on the right here. So now let's say that we want to take the result of our replace expression and we want to make it lowercase. So instead of us actually calling it like this, so let me just erase this here. One possibility would be to call it something like this. And now we do need to use parentheses here because remember, the lower function, it accepts a single parameter. However, if we pass it just like this, then Go doesn't really know that the entire result of replace here needs to be passed as a parameter to the lower function. So we could potentially use it like this, so that we group the entire call here, the entire expression under a single parameter. If we were to save this here and come back to the terminal and run Helm template, that's going to work just fine. You will see here that we have the I am a string as a result. However, a more common pattern and much more used is for us to actually use the pipe operator. So the idea here is that we would take the result of replace and then we would pass as the parameter to the lower function. So we just need to call it like this. And what this will do is it will evaluate this, it's going to calculate its result, and then it's going to pass as the parameter here to the lower function. Let's save this here. Let's come back to the terminal and let's rerun the Helm template. Just clear the screen and let's rerun Helm template. And as you can see here, we get the result back. We could also invert the order, right? So let's, instead of now calling replace first here, let's first call lower. And then let's pipe the result of lower to replace. And as you can see here, I'm not adding the final parameter on purpose. And that's because this is coming from the result of the lower function. So this is going to generate the exact same result. If we come back here, you will see Helm template, and that's exactly the same thing as before. And it's really achieving the same result, whether we lower the string first and then replace it, or whether we replace the white spaces first and then we lower the result. This would not work here if we were trying to replace some capital letters, right? So some uppercase letters, for example, let's say that we want to replace A with E, for example, just whatever, very silly example here. Then the order really matters, right? Then we need to replace this first. So let's replace I here with E. And then now we will see that if we were to save this and come back here and try to run it, then you will see that the I is not replaced. And that's because this is looking at the uppercase I, right? So there might be some order here depending on which kind of values you are expecting in your replace function. All right, let's just revert the changes here. And then once again, the concept of pipelines here, we're going to come back to this. Everything that we are discussing here, we will come back to these topics a bit later on to focus on them and take a deeper dive. Now I'm just giving you a 10,000 feet overview of the many things you can do with Go templating.